Can a war movie truly capture the terror of being sealed inside a steel box while the world explodes around you? Some WWII tank films turn battle into spectacle, but the best ones make every shell feel personal. From desperate desert stands to ghostly tiger hunts and brutal last stand missions, these movies reveal the fear, glory, and madness of armored warfare. But the film at number 1 may still be the most unforgiving tank movie ever made. Saints and Soldiers: The Void, 2014. Some tank movies show big armies crashing together, but Saints and Soldiers. The Void turns armored warfare into something smaller, tighter, and more personal. Set near the end of World War II, the film follows an American tank destroyer crew caught in a dangerous mission against German forces that are still deadly, even as the war is collapsing around them. The movie's strongest point is its focus on the men inside the machine, soldiers dealing with fear, tension, racial prejudice, duty, and the brutal uncertainty of late-war combat. Instead of treating tanks like unstoppable weapons, it shows how fragile every armored vehicle becomes when the enemy has better position, heavier firepower, or one lucky shot. The M18 Hellcat tank destroyer gives the film a different flavor from the usual Sherman versus Tiger formula, making the action feel fast, exposed, and risky. What makes it a strong replacement for the Lark is that it is much more direct as a tank combat story. It may not have the huge reputation of Fury or Battle of the Bulge, but it delivers exactly what this list needs: steel, pressure, crew drama, and battlefield danger. A lean, underrated WWII tank movie that deserves more attention. The Bridge at Remagen, 1969. Sometimes the most important battlefield is not a city, a forest, or a trench. It is one bridge everyone is willing to die for. The Bridge at Remagen turns the final months of World War II into a tense race between destruction and survival, with American armored forces pushing toward the Rhine, while German commanders scramble to stop them. The film is based around the real Ludendorff Bridge at Remagen, a crossing that became strategically vital as Allied troops advanced into Germany. What gives the movie its power is the sense of collapse. The war is almost over, but that makes everything feel even more desperate. American tanks and infantry move forward with momentum, while German defenders are trapped between duty, fear, and a crumbling command structure. The armored columns in the film do not just represent military strength, they represent history arriving at full speed. Every tank rumbling toward the bridge feels like another nail in the coffin of Nazi Germany. The action has that old-school war movie scale: explosions, smoke, artillery, panicked retreats, but the story never loses sight of the human cost. It is not the most famous tank movie on this list, but it gives armored warfare a clear purpose: break through, hold the line, and change the war's ending. A tense, underrated war machine of a film. Cross of Iron, 1977. This is not the kind of war film that salutes tanks. It shows what happens when men are crushed beneath the machinery of pride. Cross of Iron is one of the grimiest Eastern Front films ever made, directed by Sam Peckinpah with a brutal, almost exhausted hatred for romantic war myths. The story follows German soldiers fighting on the collapsing Russian front, where mud, artillery, machine guns, and armored attacks turn survival into a daily gamble. Unlike cleaner battlefield epics, this film makes war feel filthy and personal. Tanks do not glide across heroic landscapes here. They appear like steel beasts in a world already rotting. The armored combat is chaotic, smoky and ugly, wrapped around a deeper conflict between Sergeant Steiner, a hardened frontline survivor, and Captain Stransky, an aristocratic officer desperate to win glory through the Iron Cross. That tension gives the movie its bite. The real enemy is not only across the battlefield, it is also inside the command structure, inside ego, inside the need to turn suffering into medals. Cross of Iron may not be a pure tank movie from beginning to end, but its armored warfare scenes feel terrifying because they belong to a world where nobody is clean, nobody is safe, and nobody wins untouched. It is not just a woo film, it is a warning covered in mud and smoke. White Tiger, 2012. A tank should be a machine, but White Tiger turns one into a ghost that refuses to die. This Russian war film takes the familiar idea of tank combat and twists it into something stranger, darker, and more psychological. Set on the Eastern Front, the story follows a Soviet tank sergeant who survives a devastating attack and becomes obsessed with hunting a mysterious German Tiger tank known as the White Tiger. It appears, destroys, vanishes, and returns like a battlefield legend made of steel and smoke. That is what makes the film so different from a standard WWII action movie. It is not simply about who has the bigger gun or stronger armor. It is about trauma, obsession, and the feeling that war itself has become a monster. The tank battles are tense because the enemy is not treated like a normal vehicle. The White Tiger feels almost supernatural, a symbol of Nazi war power that keeps reappearing even when history says it should be defeated. The Soviet crew's mission becomes less like a military assignment and more like a haunted chase across ruined fields. Some viewers may find it unusual, but that is exactly why it stays in the mind. White Tiger is not the loudest tank movie. It is one of the most unsettling. It turns armored warfare into a nightmare you can hear before you see. Sahara, 1943. One battered tank, one dying desert, and one commander who refuses to let thirst defeat him. That is the power of Sahara. Humphrey Bogart leads this classic wartime survival story as Sergeant Joe Gunn, an American tank commander retreating across the Libyan desert with his crew in an M3 Lee tank named Lulubelle. Along the way, they gather stranded Allied soldiers from different nations, turning one tank into a moving symbol of wartime unity. What makes Sahara still work is its simplicity. There is no massive battlefield map, no endless parade of generals, and no attempt to overwhelm the viewer with spectacle. The danger is immediate: heat, exhaustion, isolation, and a German force desperate for water. The tank becomes more than a weapon. It is shelter, transport, hope, and finally, a fortress. Bogart's calm, hard-edged performance gives the film its backbone. He plays Gunn like a man who knows fear is useless unless it keeps you alert. The desert setting also gives the armored warfare a different texture. Every movement feels slow, heavy, and costly. Every drop of water matters as much as every round of ammunition. Made during the war itself, Sahara carries a clear morale-building spirit, but it never feels empty. It is old school, direct, and still gripping, a tank movie built on endurance, not noise. Battle of the Bulge, 1965. Few WWII films understand the visual thrill of armored warfare better than Battle of the Bulge, even when history purists want to argue with it. This big, star-filled war epic takes on Germany's last major offensive in the Ardennes, where the winter battlefield became one of the most important clashes of the Western Front. The film is not perfect, and yes, it takes obvious liberties with vehicles, geography, and details. But as a cinematic tank spectacle, it still has a powerful place in war movie history. The movie captures the scale of mechanized war: long columns of armor, fuel shortages, frozen roads, surprise attacks, and commanders gambling everything on speed. Its German tank offensive feels like a final desperate punch from a regime already running out of time. On the American side, the film highlights confusion, resistance, and the terrifying reality of facing armored force when the enemy appears faster than expected. The tank battles are broad and dramatic rather than documentary realistic, but they have that old Hollywood weight: wide shots, rumbling engines, explosions, and men making decisions that can decide entire sectors. For modern viewers, its flaws are easy to spot, but its energy is harder to deny. This is not the most accurate tank film ever made, but it is one of the most watchable steel and fire spectacles of classic WWII cinema. Kelly's Heroes, 1970. A gold robbery behind enemy lines should not belong on a tank warfare list, until oddballs Shermans roll into the story and steal the whole movie. Kelly's Heroes takes the dirty exhaustion of World War II and wraps it inside a wild, rebellious heist adventure. The plot follows a group of American soldiers who discover that a fortune in Nazi gold is hidden behind German lines, then decide to go after it for themselves. That setup could have been pure comedy, but the tank sequences give the film its real battlefield muscle. Donald Sutherland's Oddball, with his laid-back attitude and customized Sherman tanks, turns armored warfare into something strangely cool, funny, and dangerous all at once. The famous face-off with German Tiger tanks gives the movie its most memorable tension, because suddenly the joke stops and the steel starts talking. What makes Kelly's Heroes so watchable is the contrast. It mocks military seriousness, but it still understands the fear of moving through occupied territory in machines that can burn in seconds. Clint Eastwood brings calm control, Telly Savalas brings pressure, and Oddball brings the weirdest tank commander energy in WWII cinema. It may not be the darkest film on this list, but it is one of the most entertaining. A war heist with tank battles should not work this well, but somehow it becomes unforgettable. T-34 2018. Some tank movies chase realism. T-34 chases adrenaline, myth, and the fantasy of turning a prison into a battlefield. This Russian action war film follows Soviet prisoners who are forced into a deadly training exercise by German forces, only to hijack a T-34 tank and turn the enemy's own test into an escape attempt. The result is not a quiet historical drama. It is loud, polished, stylized, and built for maximum impact. Shells tear through armor in slow motion, tank crews think like chess players under fire, and every duel feels designed to make the viewer lean forward. The film's biggest strength is how clearly it understands the appeal of tank combat, timing, positioning, crew coordination, and the awful knowledge that one mistake can turn steel into a coffin. The T-34 itself becomes more than hardware. It becomes a symbol of resistance, revenge, and survival under impossible odds. Some viewers may find the action exaggerated, but that exaggeration is part of its blockbuster identity. It is less interested in being a dusty museum piece and more interested in making armored warfare feel fast, dangerous, and cinematic. The emotional core comes from prisoners refusing to remain powerless, using the enemy's arrogance against them. As pure tank action entertainment, T-34 hits hard, moves fast, and knows exactly why audiences love machines with fire in their bellies. Patton, 1970. Before tanks became movie monsters, one general turned armored movement into personality, ego, and legend. Patton is not a tank crew film like Fury or Sahara, but it absolutely belongs on this list because it captures the mind behind large-scale armored warfare. The film follows General George S. Patton across North Africa and Europe, presenting him as brilliant, theatrical, aggressive, and deeply controversial. He is shown as a commander who believes war is movement, pressure, speed, and willpower. That makes the film essential for understanding the grand strategy side of tank warfare. Instead of trapping us inside one vehicle, Patton pulls the camera back and shows the battlefield as a massive chessboard of fuel, timing, weather, roads, and ambition. George C. Scott's performance is the engine of the film. He does not play Patton as simply heroic. He plays him as magnetic, difficult, proud, visionary, and dangerous to himself as much as to his enemies. The North African desert scenes and European advances give the movie its sweeping armored war identity, even when the focus remains on command rather than cockpit-level combat. What makes Patton powerful is its refusal to make greatness look simple. Victory comes with arrogance, conflict, discipline, and obsession. It is not the most intimate tank movie, but it may be the greatest film about the armored war mindset. Fury, 2014. No WWII tank movie makes steel feel more like a coffin than Fury. Set during the final Allied push into Germany, the film follows a battle-worn Sherman crew led by Don War Daddy Collier, played with grim exhaustion by Brad Pitt. These men are not clean heroes marching through glory. They are tired, damaged, superstitious, and trapped inside a machine that has kept them alive while slowly eating away at their humanity. That claustrophobic feeling is what makes Fury so powerful. The tank is cramped, loud, filthy, and terrifying. Every order matters. Every reload matters. Every second before an enemy shell lands feels like a lifetime. The film's most famous sequence, the Sherman versus Tiger confrontation, works because it shows the brutal imbalance between courage and machinery. The crew is brave, but bravery does not make armor thicker. The final stand is controversial for some viewers, but as cinema, it burns itself into memory. One tank, one road, one impossible choice. What separates Fury from many modern war films is its emotional ugliness. It does not pretend survival makes men noble. It shows how war bends them, hardens them, and leaves them haunted even when they keep moving forward. For modern audiences, Fury remains the most intense WWII tank warfare movie ever made, raw, ruthless, and impossible to watch casually. And that is why WWII tank films still hit differently. They are not just about machines, explosions, or battlefield strategy. They are about men trapped inside steel, making impossible choices while history closes in around them. Some are heroic, some are messy, and some are almost haunting. But the best ones remind us, in tank warfare, survival was never guaranteed.